today specifically for those of you who are here to try to debunk flat Earth, and we know you're here. Those of you who came here specifically for the purpose of debunking the flat Earth. And so I want to give you 12 helpful hints on how to go about doing so. Thus, I've titled my first part of this lecture, Debunking Flat Earth 101. Now, I should warn you up front, attempting to debunk flat Earth often leads to converting you into becoming a flat earther. So I'm giving you fair warning, especially with the first point that I'm going to present here. Point number 1, never forget, we used to be you. All right, fair warning. We all started out as skeptics. Every one of us. This is stupid, this is crazy, this is the 21st century for crying out loud. Why are we talking about this? This was settled hundreds of years ago, right? How many of you started out that way? Yeah, pretty much everybody, right? We all had the same indoctrination you did. We went to the same schools, we read the same books. We've seen the same movies, television shows, and documentaries. We've all been to the same museums that you've been to. There's no question that you're going to ask that we haven't already asked ourselves. So it's not likely that you're going to stump us with some amazing new piece of evidence that we haven't already thoroughly considered ourselves. Now, I'll just say this. Many, but not all of us, come at this from a biblical perspective. You may hear various presenters here during this conference that are and are not from that perspective. I do come from a biblical worldview, so I will present some things from that perspective, but not everybody's on the same page. So this is not a religious movement, even though many people who come into this understanding quickly realize there must be a creator. Yeah, it's been an interesting side effect. You know, I was in the Army and we used to say there are no atheists in foxholes. Well, there are no atheists in a terrarium either. Somebody built this thing. Number 2, none of us belong to the Flat Earth Society. Media, please take note of that. All right, we didn't run one day and say, boy, you know, I got to join some club or cult. You know, I want to join something where everybody's going to hate me and make fun of me and call me names for the rest of my life. Yeah, where do I sign up? You know, when we say, yeah, you know, I believe in enclosed world cosmology or flat Earth, immediately people, oh, you must belong to the Flat Earth Society. Well, that's like, you know, saying, hey, I'm a Christian. Oh, you must be Catholic. No. You know, me personally, I grew up Baptist, but there's tens of thousands of denominations to choose from. Now, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, hopefully we all agree that Yeshua, or Jesus Christ, if you prefer, is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through Him. Regardless of your denomination, hopefully if you're calling yourself a Christian, you got that part right. But there's a lot of other things we clearly disagree on, right, within Christianity. Well, the same is true with this subject here. We don't all agree, and there are several different models to choose from. You may even hear some of those here during this conference. The one thing we do all agree on, though, is that the earth is not a spinning ball. And for the most part, I would say this is a leaderless movement of independent researchers. Now, there are some people who want to take credit. I started this movement, blah, blah, blah. They have their own ego to work out, you know, issues. But this is a leaderless movement. I mean, there's just people waking up all over the world just doing their own research. Therefore, you need to judge each of us on our own merits based on our own work. Don't judge me based on something Eric Dubay or Mark Sargent or Jaron Campanella or Bob Nadella or anybody else says. Likewise, don't judge them based on anything that I say, right? Judge each of us on the merits of our own work. Stop going to the Flat Earth Society and cherry-picking the most ridiculous claims they make and associating them with us as if that's what we believe. Most of us consider that website to be either controlled opposition or a joke. I can't tell you how many media news outlets, Christian and otherwise, that I've seen. The first thing they do is go to the Flat Earth Society and look for the most ridiculous thing they have on that website and then attach that to me or others. Don't do that. Relax. No one's fallen off the edge of anything. If it's flat, we're going to fall off the edge. No. Look, just do a Google for the coastline of Antarctica. All right, most of us recognize that, at least in the model that we subscribe to, or a lot of us do anyway, that Antarctica forms the ice rim of the circle of the Earth. All right, so just do a Google for the coastline of Antarctica, and you'll see stuff like this. 100 to 200, 300-foot ice walls. No one's fallen off the edge of anything, so you can relax on that one. Okay, no one believes the upward floating disk theory of gravity. All right. This is important. Media. If there is anybody in the room from the media, please turn your attention up here. Stop what you're doing and look up here. You need to pay attention to this. Please do not put this in your presentation. Everybody watching, watch the screen. Do not put this in your presentation. We don't believe that. That's one of the stupid things you will find on the Flat Earth Society website. How many of you guys have seen news reports where they put flat earthers believe that the earth is going upwards at 9.8 whatever? How many of you have seen that, right? Don't do that. You know, if your goal is to try to make us look stupid, let me give you a hint. Our numbers are growing exponentially worldwide. I doubt yours are. So if you're going to try to make us look stupid by doing that, you're just going to prove how stupid you are. So I'm trying to help you out here. All right. Number 5. You guys don't know anything more about gravity than we do. So stop pretending that you do. And if you don't believe me, here's one of your experts saying just basically the same thing.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question. No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know. We look out at the universe, and 85% of all the gravity that's out there has some mysterious, unknown source. We add up all the stars, the galaxies, the planets, the comets, the black holes, the dark clouds, everything out there that we can see, touch, smell, or taste. And it doesn't add up to give us the gravity that we see operating in this universe. So really, we should be calling it the dark force, because we don't know if it's made of matter. It could be a profound misnomer, sending people off in thought directions that might not really be the right path. So dark matter is just simply what we call this thing about which we know nothing, responsible for 85% of the gravity of the cosmos. It is the longest standing unsolved problem in modern astrophysics. Dark matter, dark energy. Everything we know about the universe, what we're made of, galaxies, stars, planets, that's all right here. So, according to this chart, we are 96% stupid.
Well, at least they're willing to admit it. Now, here's the thing. Further back we look in the ancient records, the more we find massive megalithic structures all over the world. Sometimes even on top of mountains, rocks stacked so perfectly in irregular shapes without any mortar. And scientists look at this and they can't figure out how it was done. So, of course, it must have been ancient aliens, right? Or even people like myself have speculated and said, maybe it was done by giants. And while I suspect there may still be some truth to the latter, what if we've all got it wrong just based on a faulty premise? Consider, for example, the more recent case of the Coral Castle in Florida.
In Search Of has investigated the mystery of many ancient monuments, the pyramids, Stonehenge, and Easter Island. A solution to these puzzles may be concealed in Florida's Coral Castle. This monumental structure was created by one man with his bare hands in the 20th century. What strange forces created this castle of secrets? Coral Castle has been called the 8th wonder of the world. This place is a fantasy garden and an engineering marvel. The blocks are cut and set with great precision, locked without mortar. At 30 tons, the greatest single stone in Coral Castle is twice as massive as any in the pyramids. Here are massive megaliths, huge astrological symbols, and structures whose purpose is a total mystery. Coral Castle was built, not in ancient times, but in the 20th century. Most curious of all, Coral Castle was built in secret by one man, Edward Leedskalnin, a frail little hermit. With no modern machinery and with no help, he somehow hand-carved and lifted every single block, a total of 3 million pounds. With all our modern technology, we might be able to duplicate the pyramids. But how could we ever do it with our bare hands? Dreamers beyond the fringe of science have postulated a long-lost art of harnessing anti-gravity. It seems incredible, but Ed Leedskalnin may have rediscovered these ancient secrets.
He'd say this is because of the stars and the moon, and he would go on and he would show us his electrical machine, how he made electricity, and he'd always divert your question.
This block weighs 9 tons. It's just one piece of rock. See what you can do with one hand?
Crazy, huh? How many of you guys have heard of Coral Castle before? Pretty amazing. What if gravity is not what we've been taught to believe, the Newtonian Einstein theories of gravity? Not only did this guy build this whole thing by himself, I think it was like 10 or 11 years later, he had to move the entire thing. And he did. He moved the whole thing like in a couple of nights by himself. So clearly he understood something, and this is a new field of research for me, so I'm not going to really talk on it. I'll just kind of put it out there for you guys to consider. A few books that, as I started looking into electrogravitics and all that kind of stuff, found out that there was a lot of technical journals and military applications and things being worked on from the 1920s to the 1950s dealing with electrogravitics, anti-gravity, going all the way back to the 1920s. I started reading this book, Hunt for Zero Point, a fascinating book, and he recommended some of the other authors and books that you see on the screen there. I would recommend you guys check that out too, because perhaps what we think of gravity is a profound misnomer, as Neil deGrasse Tyson said, sending people on thought paths that may not be correct. And clearly, somebody in the ancient world knew and understood things a lot differently than we do. I mean, they're moving huge blocks of stone up mountains, for crying out loud, and building megalithic structures that don't even have mortar. You know, everything's so tightly knit together. Amazing. Another website to check out, our YouTube channel, is the Thunderbolts Project, talking about the electroplasma universe. Fascinating stuff. So consider this: if anti-gravitics has been figured out since the 1920s, don't you think it might be easy to fake space in a warehouse? Just consider that. Look into the Earth's magnetic field and ley lines and things like that. Have you heard about ley lines? That the Earth supposedly has some sort of electrical field around it, and megalithic structures around the world, like the pyramids of Giza and whatnot, are built on these things. That's what it looks like on a globe projection map. Somebody took the ley lines and put it onto the flat Earth map, and curiously enough, it ends up being the esoteric seed of life, flower of life, which just so happens to be the logo of the new flag of the planet Earth. You can look that up on flagofplanetearth.com. Interesting. Now, when it comes to electromagnetism, I'd like you to consider something else. I recently picked this up on Amazon, this interesting levitating, rotating, floating moon. About $20. Pretty cool. You know, check that out. A self-illuminating moon floating. No problem. And I continue to look on Amazon and elsewhere. I found this on YouTube, this levitating clock. Now, if you read Genesis, the creation account, it says the sun, moon, and stars were put there for time and for seasons. This is a big clock that we're living on. That's why I so appreciate David Weiss's app that he's put together, because it illustrates that quite nicely. Now, if we can make toys and novelty clocks with this principle, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest the absurd notion that it just may be possible that the creator could have come up with something similar. Just call me crazy. Okay. I think it's possible. All right. Number 6, you can't just insert flat Earth into the Copernican model of the universe. All right. How many of you guys have seen memes like this on Facebook and whatnot, right? They're like, flat earthers be like, no, we don't believe that. You know, they're all doing their best Barney Rubble, right? Flat earthers, we don't believe that. You know, maybe there are a few people out there who do, but at least most of the speakers that I know here, we don't believe that the Earth is just the pancake and everything else is, the same in the Copernican model. So stop using memes like that. Number 7, do at least some research into the founding of JPL, NASA, the Freemasons, Nazis, and all that good stuff, please. When you look into the founding of these organizations and look into like Project Paperclip and 1,600 Nazis being brought over, and they're being, NASA's being ruled primarily by Freemasons. And then you got, meanwhile, elsewhere, you got characters like this. Jack Parsons even made a TV series out of the guy, for crying out loud. He was a student of Aleister Crowley, the Beast, the most wicked man of the 20th century, who back in, I believe it was 1917, did ceremonial sex magic rituals called the Amalantra working, and supposedly ripped a veil in the, time-space dimension or whatever, and an entity came through, and he drew the picture of this entity. He called it Lamb. That just so happens to look curiously similar to the modern grays, alien grays of pop culture, which about, a few decades later, his student here, Jack Parsons, out there in the desert, I think if I remember right, was actually in the region that later became known as Area 51. He was out there with L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, doing more ceremonial sex magic, the Babylon working, and shortly after that, we have, all the UFO lore and everything that came as a result of all of that. So I'm telling you, you need to look into the interesting partners of NASA. And it reminds me of the scriptures, 1 Corinthians 15:33. He says, do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. So when you have an organization run by occultists, Freemasons, and Nazis, what do you think the end result's going to be? And they also have some interesting affiliations with people like Arthur C. Clarke and, of course, Stanley Kubrick, which becomes very fascinating when we start looking into the Apollo missions. Let's move on here. Number 8, please, I'm begging you, learn what a fisheye lens is and what it does to images. Please. I can't tell you how many videos and pictures people send me, and they're trying to tell me I'm an idiot. You're such an idiot. Look, you'll get it. And they'll put out videos like this.
The Earth is round, and here's the proof. Remember Felix Baumgartner? He jumped from the edge of space a few years back to perform the highest parachute jump ever. Well, that was on a live feed in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and you can clearly see the Earth's curvature. So yes, there is tons of proof that Earth is a sphere.
So yes, there's tons of proof that I'm an idiot.
So, dude, that was Planet New Mexico, for crying out loud. All right? The same curvature was visible 5 feet before his feet hit the ground. So if you're going to come at me, you know, look at the curve. Sorry for that. It's cathartic for me to get that out every now and then. This is what these people send me all the time. They're trying to call me an idiot, and they're giving me that as their proof. Here's a little clue. If you see pictures like that, just complete the curve. Wow, look at that. Look how big Felix is. Jumping out over Planet New Mexico. I'm telling you, I mean, I had friends sending me stuff like this. This guy has a PhD, okay? He's sending me stuff with the footage from the Mythbusters, right? They supposedly went up in a spy plane, 75,000 feet or something, over planet San Francisco. And, you know, he's like, look beyond the flat earth gurus and their false claims. He says, a fisheye lens doesn't curve things that much. I'm like, no, he's got the same curve over the back of his head, 50 feet off the runway. Right? How many of you guys got this stuff from your friends and family? Right? All over the place. Learn what a fisheye lens is, for crying out loud. I mean, you got websites like this, physics.org, you have smart people, lab coats, right? Local credibility, PhDs, letters after your name. Right? Students film breathtaking curvature of the earth using high altitude weather balloon. You would have thought that the curved rope might have given them a clue. Something's wrong with this picture. Why did they just stop the video at 4 seconds in? Students prove curvature of the earth, 15 feet. Seriously. Learn what a fisheye lens is. Meanwhile, flat earthers and others are sending up high-altitude weather balloons that don't have fisheye lens attached to them, and we're coming back with images like this. You know, it's interesting. I saw the movie First Man. Have you guys seen that movie? The Neil Armstrong movie just came out? Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. But in the opening sequence, he's in the X-15 jet there, you know, doing a high-altitude flight test. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but I mean, his altimeter was showing like 140,000 feet and climbing. And incidentally, he was flying in a jet with the tail number 66672. Rather interesting. But they actually depicted the horizon just like that at almost 200,000 feet. Interesting. Yeah. Number 9, please realize you don't have a working map or model either. Those of you in the globe camp. I mean, you could just go look into this. You guys got well over 200 projection maps. You say, well, yeah, of course, Rob. That's what happens when you try to take a spherical object and map it out on a 2D map. Well, that's not my problem. I don't believe the Earth's a ball. That's your problem. But you're coming at me and others and saying, well, show us a map, show us the model. Well, you don't have a map. You've had 2,500 years and you still don't have a map, right? We believe the Earth's a globe, says Pythagoras and Eratosthenes. Okay, great. You've had 2,500 years. You can't get a map right yet? And when it comes to the model that you guys believe, you got your own experts saying stuff like this. Usually in science, when we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120th. That is a 1 with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science. Wow. Why don't you guys knock off at least 100 zeros and get back to us? Oh, we're off by 10 to the 20th power. Woo-hoo-hoo! Great. Wonderful. You guys are coming at us. Show us a map, show us a model. You've had 2,500 years and $51 million a day for organizations like NASA, and you don't have a model right yet either. So if you don't have a map and you don't have a model that's accurate, how dare you come at us? We've had, 3 years and no money? And no resources? Give us a break. Number 10, like it or not, the Bible is a flat earth book from cover to cover. Thank you. I've covered this in depth, so I'm not going to go through that here. You can watch my presentation from last year or pretty much any of my videos online for that matter. But in summary, I would say from Genesis to Revelation, the earth is consistently described by Holy Spirit-inspired authors as fixed and not moving, spinning, orbiting, etc. Circular with edges, corners, pillars, foundations, etc. Under a dome within which the sun, moon, and stars were placed on day 4. Now, this is not thus saith the Lord. You will not find this in any Bible or anything like that. This is thus thinketh Rob in the King James. I'm an artist, okay, by trade. So as I'm reading through the text, this is my artist conceptualization of what I see. I don't claim this to be the actual what we're living in, but it's what makes sense to me when I read the text. This is what I see in my mind. And on the interior of that, you would have essentially the footstool of God. Now, whereas there is absolutely nothing in the Bible that supports any notion of this, Danny Faulkner, or anybody else in here from the creation ministry. Nothing in the Bible even remotely supports any notion of this. No, by the way, Scripture says concerning the moon, he said God created 2 great lights, not one great light and a reflective rock. So I bought this recently online on Amazon. Pretty cool. Self-illuminating moon. Scientists and creationists and modern theologians disagree, right? Because the Chinese could figure it out and God can't. Self-illuminating moon with shadowed craters and everything. Pretty cool. Get it, $20 on Amazon. All right, this is the bulk of my presentation right here. Most of your typical top X reasons videos are easy to debunk. How many of you have seen videos like the one at the top right here on YouTube? Top 10 reasons why we know the earth is round. Well, first of all, round doesn't just apply to a globe. I see a bunch of people sitting at round tables right here. So you need to lose that word. The video I'm going to show you, it took me a long time to do this. When I first started looking into this, long before I ever committed to what I believe now, I looked at these videos. I mean, like everybody else, I started out as a skeptic. I'm going to disprove this, start looking for videos and stuff, easy things to prove that the Earth's a globe, right? So you do a Google search, and that's one of the videos that pops up. It's got several million views. Top 10 reasons why we know the Earth is round. Back in 2015, early in 2015, I watched that video, and even before even considering becoming a flat earther, I thought, wow, I could easily debunk all of those. Not even being committed. So your top 10 reasons aren't that impressive. So what I did was I sat down, and I know a lot of others did the same thing. I started to show how they're easily debunked and did videos on it. And of course, brevity's never been my strong point. If you look up my videos, I got a playlist with the top 10 reasons. Somebody else, Seventh Day Truth Seeker, combined all of my videos. It came out to over 6 hours long. So I took those 6 hours and did my best to try to distill it down for something that I can use in this presentation. So for the next 45 minutes, you're going to see a condensed version of my debunking the top 10 reasons. If you want to see the rest of them, you've got 6 hours of time. You can watch the longer one on my YouTube channel. So here we go, debunking the top 10 reasons.
Number 10. All the other planets and stars we've ever seen are round, and there's no reason to indicate that the Earth should be any different.
Okay, that's an interesting assumption, but it's not a proof. It's like looking at a pool table and saying, wow, all the billiard balls are spherical. Well, that means the table must be too. Or looking up and seeing the lights overhead. Oh, the light bulbs are spherical, therefore the table must be too. No, that's not a proof of anything.
Number 9. Time zones. Day and night happen at different times at different places on Earth. In fact, it's always day somewhere and night somewhere else.
Okay, time zones. I think part of the problem is people who come from the spinning heliocentric globular Earth model, as soon as they hear flat, they just try to squish the Earth into a pancake and keep everything else the way it is in the heliocentric globular Earth model. Meaning, okay, now you just got this flat disk inside a solar system. And they try to apply the dynamics of the solar system in a massively huge sun 93 million miles away, over